What's good, guys? My name is Bill Slinton, and today I'm going to be walking you through what my Ableton template looks like in 2024. It has evolved a lot over the years. In fact, I find myself tweaking things a little bit almost every single month sometimes. Sometimes I leave it alone. But yeah. Basically, what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to walk you through all of my channels. What kind of processing do I have on my default MIDI, default audio channels, as well as, what do I have on the processing for the groups? What do I have? How I have my groups routed, because they don't all route to the master anymore, like in the default Ableton template. I'm also going to show you my sidechain. I'm also going to show you how I route my sidechains. And finally, I'll show you what my mastering chain looks like. And for the Patreons, if you'd like to get a copy of this Ableton 12 download file, I'll have that available as well. I'll probably put an Ableton 11 version on there too, only because I just recently upgraded from 11 till 12, so I still have, it's more or less this, but not exactly quite the same, but more or less the exact same. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So on my drums group, actually first let's just zoom out here. So I have drums, bass, synths, melody, vocals, and sound effects. Those I find to be all the groups that I've ever really needed. Everything seems to fit nicely within those. And on my drums bus, or drums group rather, in Ableton, I have a drum bus, a K-Clip 3. K-Clip is a clipper. It's really handy for getting extra headroom in your mix, especially with things that have like transients to them. So drums, kicks, snares, hi-hats, they all have really quick transients, so that's why that's there. EQ, basic compressor. You notice these things are off. Some of the things you'll see throughout my template I have is off, and they're really just there to serve as like a reminder, so that when I get to the mixing stage, I can be like, oh yeah, let me turn that on. Moving on, let's just go here. So I've got my kick and my snare group. I like to keep those separate from the rest of my drums. You'll see I have my main kick and my top kick built into this instrument rack. And so if you want to layer two kicks, or layer to claps or snares, or even you can drag a sample from your library right into here, and it will add like a third one. So I just find that to be pretty handy. I like working in MIDI. Yeah, so next we have an EQ for the kick group, and then there's also, you'll see I've named all of them so I don't get confused. So you have the EQ. This is a transient shaper device. I think I got it from, or rather a transient shaper rack that I got from maybe Seed to Stage. Check him out. His tutorials are amazing. And I usually like to add a little bit of saturation to my kick to give it a little bit of extra drive. And then there's a final EQ. And that way, if I want to drag any extra effects along the writing process, I'll usually put them in between here, and it's nice just to have an EQ there. And then same thing, this looks more or less the same. Yeah, this is exactly the same, except I've carved out 100 hertz and above, so we're not going to be getting any low end on our clap or snares. And also I really like using, what is this? This is a simpler. So right in here you can choose some different filter modes. The OSR mode I think is not the default. Usually it's the clean mode, but you'll see the drive disappeared there. So you put on OSR and you can add drive to your kick or to your samples. Next up, we got the hi-hats rack. One of my favorite writing techniques is to get a whole bunch of hi-hats like this, select them, drag them on, drop them. So this has like a whole bunch already preloaded. You could download my template and you could put whatever hi-hats you want on here. It's just super handy to work in MIDI. You could test out a whole bunch really quickly. And then there's, you know, a utility for gain staging, then a hi-hat rack for like the overall EQing of all of the hi-hats if you want to cut out lows on all of them. Typically what I end up doing is whichever hi-hats I like using. Let's see, for example, I might grab like an EQ8 and say this is the hi-hat I'm using. You can just come here, drag it on there, and it will just put it right after. And that's how I'll like mix per se, working within the rack. Or, you know, you can also extract chains wherever that is. You know, you can come here, extract chains, and that will pull this out of this rack with any processing and put it on its own channel. But I don't usually end up doing that. I just work within here, keeps everything like kind of tidy. I don't know, it's all personal preference at the end of the day. And we come down here, I've got the perks rack. You'll see this is empty, so this is sort of one of those something to remind me like, hey, you could do this. So that's just there. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. And then also Command T, open my default audio track, and you'll see I have a utility and an EQ8 already dialed in here for me because I prefer to do my mixing for the channel with the utility versus on here. And then that way also if I do any automations, sorry, I should correct myself there. I prefer to do my automations here, and then I leave this free so that later in my session I can freely mix this and it's not being messed around with by automations. So Command Shift T for default MIDI track, new MIDI track. This is what my default MIDI's instruments look like. This is super handy, the pitch instrument, which I think is just free from, you know, whatever version of Ableton you have. You can jump up and down whole octaves, I think, -12, -24, -36. Yeah, so this is really handy if you're working with Serum and somebody made a pitch or made a patch and it's in like the C3, but it should have been made in the C0 because it's a sub bass instrument. Or you just want to like experiment with having like to see what that patch sounds like at a different octave. Having this on here, you don't have to open Serum. You can just change the octave of the MIDI that's going in without having to go into your MIDI clip and select all and then, you know, shift up or down to change the octave for all of the MIDI. So that's what my default MIDI clip looks like, or MIDI track. And then this is the same as my default audio. Coming down to the bass group. So just have these two things here. I used to have more stuff, but don't really use it that much. So I got rid of them. Wanted to just clean it up a little bit. So hip hop sub bass, I think, is not even included in Live 12 anymore. It's just like a default preset for operator. It's just a really nice sub bass. So if you don't have it, you should use it. And then this was a freebie from Seed to Stage as well. Subs you could hear. It's just got some nice harmonics and whatnot that you can tune with these macros. Nothing else fancy here. Now I will point out that you'll see on this drop down, usually it'll say main, which means it's going to the master, but I have it on sends only if we come back up to drums, see it says main. So this is going, anything in the drums group is going directly to the master, which is here, main. And then my other groups, so this group is going sends only, and I've turned up this send all the way. So it's going to send C, which is this sidechain 1 bass group, and then the rest of the groups from here down, so synths, melody, vocals, and sound effects, these are all sends only as well, but they're going to send D. So send D is sidechain to everything else. So to recap, the drums group is going straight to the main. The bass group is going to this sidechain so that I can, have my kick and my snare, or just the kick or whatever, do sidechain just on the bass group. And then from here, it's going to the main. And then the rest of the groups, so synth, melody, vocals, and sound effects, they are going to this sidechain group, which by default I have turned off because maybe I don't want to sidechain anything in here. So this can also serve as just like a place where you can like process everything but the drums right inside here, and then from here it goes to the main. And then your typical reverb, send, and delay, send and return. I guess they're called returns. I don't know, what are they called? Send, returns, I don't know, they send from one place, sends only, so they send and then they return somewhere else. So these are these are just your typical reverb and delay, but I've added this EQ because typically we don't want to hear any low end in our reverb send. Anywho, back to here. So synths, the synths group, nothing really on here. We got a bass mono. I think I had one also on here. Usually I have that on. I think I turned that off right before this video. So yeah, usually, bass mono below 120 hertz. Keep that sub nice and centered. And then I have a Serum initialized patch on this rack, which is pretty cool. I have it saved inside my Ableton library as this Serum init high pass plus overdrive. And it just kind of gives some extra presence to the highs and the low mids. And then usually what I'll like to do is like add another Serum, stick it right there, and then you can do like a sub direct out and like do no processing on it, maybe like do that one, and then when you're programming your MIDI, you can have your dedicated sub. Maybe I'll grab like an EQ actually for the full tutorial here. We'll go like this, we'll go, okay, there's our dedicated sub from our Serum. And then here we have the processed, patch, assuming this is going to be like a bass patch. I guess really this version of it would live in the bass area, and then in the synths, I guess that's why I don't have this here. So we remove that one, and now I guess I've high passed this just because I guess there's not really going to be much lows in here, and if there is, then this instrument probably belongs up with the bass group so that it's getting properly sidechained with the kick and the snare. Next up, I have this here. Honestly, I don't use it that much, but it's a pretty cool little tool. It's free. It's a free VST, and it just has all these awesome rave stab sounds. Hopefully you guys could hear that. I didn't check Ableton's thing before I started this. We'll see. Yeah, it's just got lots of fun, like 90s style rave stabs. Guys are still using them today. They're great. Next up, we got the melody group. Again, I've high passed below 100 hertz, and I have a glue compressor there for, you know, gluing shit together if I want to in the future. This is here, grand piano. I don't know if you ever heard, it's a good idea to like come up with melodies and chords and whatnot using a piano, because it's just a more of a pure tone. So it's just there as you know, a default instrument that I can start jamming out on and coming up with ideas. I'm pretty sure this is a default Ableton instrument. And then this is a little device that I saved, the Bill Slinton playable sampler. So you can drag any sample on here. Let's say you wanted to use this as like you get an 808 sample from a sample pack. You could put that on here, and then you can make sure you tune it using the controls here. You transpose the sample so that when you're hitting a C on your keyboard, it's also playing a C in the software. You got to load up the tuner instrument after on here, or tuner effect, and you can see which note it's playing. But yeah, a couple cool macros on here. This is just fun to play around with. It's fun to, you know, sometimes get out of the box and not always be stuck using software synthesizers. It's fun to grab like samples from your sample packs and throw them on here and play them as a playable instrument, instead of like dragging the audio clip onto the timeline and then like playing with audio, playing with the pitches that way. It's just another way. There is no right and wrong to this game. It's really all just about experimenting, right? Next up, we got the vocals group. Nothing crazy here. This is just a preset from the library, sustained lead vocal. So I have that on there. Sometimes I turn it off, and then I have a bunch of racks here you'll see that are turned off, and these are my favorite vocal chain racks to use. Sometimes I'll use more than one, sometimes I won't use any of them, but they're just here as a reminder that if I do any vocal work, I grab any vocal samples and they're dry, or I decide they want additional processing, then I come and I put those, you know, start playing around with those. That's that. Sound effects. Yeah, nothing crazy here. And then I just have like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 audio channels, because usually I'm just, you know, doing Command F, white noise or whatever effects, and just dragging those on here. And it's just nice because, you know, usually I have tons of effects channels. I would say like in the realm of like 15 to 20 at least for every finished project, because, you know, every sample is going to get EQ'd in its own way, so it deserves its own channel. This is a reminder channel to add an atmosphere. I really like the BBC. I have like this BBC, I guess, I don't even know if you could get this, maybe on some like Reddit forum or something. Someone gave me a hard drive from like BBC Radio 1, and it's like all these places that were recorded ambient crowds: Czech Republic, Hungary, Istanbul, London, Paris, and then it goes into like parks and nature and rainforests and rivers and all this stuff. So I love to put an atmosphere and high pass it, low pass it, and kind of just make it sit in the back, maybe add a reverb or a delay to it, and just make a space for everything to live in. You know, it's all part of the storytelling, right? Where are the sounds in this song living? What place are they taking place in? If that makes any sense. Yeah, and then I have a couple instruments on here. Wavetable pad thing that I made, this white noise effects generator, which is super awesome. It's just good for like, you got to record the audio out of it, but maybe add a saturator to it. You play with these. You can make your own custom white noise splashes, risers, whatever to your heart's content. And then I have a couple wavetable presets that I made, and basically these are here to give you on-demand risers. You can resample it to another channel, fuck with it some more. Yeah, so that's me holding a button on my keyboard. I guess I should probably use the push so you could see what I'm doing, but yeah. And then the last one here, which I didn't mention before, is reference tracks. So you'll see this group goes external out, which means it's going directly to my audio interface. I do not want to put an already mastered song from somebody else as my reference track, put it on here, and then have it go from the group to the main through my mastering chain if I should happen to have it on, or like whatever processing I have there. I don't want it getting affected, because that kind of is like ruining the whole point of having a reference track. So, you know, if you open any more, or maybe you have two, then now everything is going to go directly to the audio interface. Yeah, actually there's something else I wanted to go over, and that is I built some custom keyboard shortcuts. So if you press Command K, you get a list of everything. So I have P makes the entire session into mono on off. So that's so that when I'm doing mixing, I can see how things sound in mono. U is the global record, so I can hit U on my keyboard, and you know, if I don't have a control surface and I don't feel like coming up to the button here, you can see there's a little U. I hit U on my keyboard and it will start the recording process. Then we have some shortcuts that I programmed on Shortcut Buddy, V, E, and T, which I'll show you in a minute. And O, right beside P, is the transport metronome on off button. So Command K to exit that. So yeah, now I can turn the metronome on and off. I can come down here to my master strip. So if I press P, you see it turns this on, and this is just mono enabled utility that I renamed mono on off so that I can, you know, not forget what it's doing. So anywhere in my session, it doesn't matter if I'm up here and I'm doing something, if I press P, the session's in mono. I press P again, it's now out of mono. So it's just a handy keyboard shortcut. That's why I have it up in the corner, because it's away from everything else that I normally do. And then K-clip is usually something that I just recently started using with this setting, master light clipping, and it's just to like shave off a couple decibels of the master signal that's coming in from, you know, all of the groups are coming here. So if there's anything that's transienting, I know it's not a word, but you know, sticking out there, I can just shave those off before we get to any compressors, before we get to the limiting and all that. So that's why that's there. And then I have my mastering rack, and I think I'll probably do a whole other separate video if I'm gonna go explaining this. I don't know how I came to this, but let me just say, like, I don't use all of these things on every single song when I'm mastering. Like, you'll see, like, I turned the rack on, this came on, this is off, this is doing nothing, this is off, this is off, this is off. So it's all like per case by case basis as to like what everything's doing. And then at the end, I just recently started using FabFilter Pro L2, which is amazing, by the way. You can push, if you're making like loud music, like bass music, dance music, any EDM, FabFilter is like goated, man. You can push so hard. Like using this limiter, you can only push like 2 or 3 decibels before you start hearing, I guess, clipping or distortion. Like it's not transparent. With the FabFilter, you can push it like 10 decibels of reduction and it's transparent. Like you don't hear nothing. At least I don't. And then you'll see I have this one more utility called verse to chorus. And what I use this for, and it has to go after the limiter, otherwise it won't work. I use this in my arrangement. Like let's say I have my like verse section and then the drop is here, right? And then you have a breakdown and then another drop, whatever. So what I'll do is I'll automate the gain in the sections that I want to be like 2 or 3 decibels quieter, so that when the drop hits, it's at full volume. And when it's, you know, the quieter sections, just for that like psychoacoustical impact, you can get your drops like just like so loud, and then like the rest of, you know, maybe just like the intro and the outro you might bring down a little bit. Sometimes in the breakdown or bridge, I might also attenuate that 1 or 2 decibels. And then yeah, so that's my mastering rack. And then I have this folder, this group called extras. This is just a cool Max for Live device, which when you turn it on, it makes this actually do stereo panning, whereas right now it's like it's not. I don't remember what the exact explanation of it is, but it's not. This is actually, no, I do remember. If you put it this way, it's just like now the right channel is all the way loud and the left channel is off, and then same with this. So it's like it's not really panning, it's like turning down the volume of one channel and the other. Whereas if you turn this on, it like takes, I think, the left and the right signal and will put it all on the left or put it all on the right. I might be botching that, but who knows. This is a Pomodoro timer, which is just for fun. If you want to do like speed writing, timer beats, as Il Gates calls them. And then this is Shortcut Buddy, which is something that you'll have to purchase. I'm not going to include this in my template for the Patreons to download, just out of respect for them, because this is like such a freaking cool device. I don't know, I guess it's a Max for Live device that they programmed. And basically what you can do is like you search for reverb or whatever stuff you use all the time, drag it from here onto one of these, and then you do Command K, and you'll see I programmed V for reverb, E for EQ8, and T for saturator. And so now that I have those there, those other devices are not key programmed. So let's say I'm like up here and I'm like, hey, I'd really like an EQ8. I press E. Wow, it's not working. Maybe V. That's so weird. It's on. That was off before. This is working. Oh, you know why? It's because I have this thing on. So if I press M, turn it off, we'll come back up here. See if I press E, there. Yeah, so now E, V, and T, saturator. So these are 3 things that I use a lot. And you know, it's fast to go Command F, EQ, enter, enter. But it's a lot faster just to press E and I have an EQ, or V and I have a reverb, or T and I have a saturator. That I think is like one of the most game-changing plugins ever made. If you have any game-changing plugins that you want to show me, please, you know, comment, send me a DM, whatever. I'd love to know about them. I think that wraps up this video. I hope I wasn't monotonous in my voice, but there was a lot to get through in here. And like I said, if you want to get a download of this Ableton template, I'm going to post it inside my Patreon. And you can get a copy minus maybe a couple of the things that you have to pay for, like Shortcut Buddy. And yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and tell your grandma about me. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.